Aloha and welcome to Connection to the Cosmos with your host, me, Dr. Lisa Thompson, where I have out of this world conversations with extraordinary people. And today I am so excited to have Miss Brandi Khan on, and I'll tell you a little bit more about her in just a moment. But first, just a couple of announcements. If you are watching this on Facebook, we would love your comments, any questions that you may have. Also, if you're watching this on YouTube, same thing. And please like and subscribe to the channel. If you're listening on any of the podcast outlets, thank you so much. And I still have available for the next couple weeks my 2023 Cosmic Message and Theme of the Year, where I channel a very specific message and theme for you from Arcturian Uluru. So that is available still on my website, the 2023 Cosmic Message and Theme. I also have my new Connection to the Cosmos ET Connector essential oil spray that I am so excited about. It smells so good. And this is to really elevate your vibration and deepen your connection. So this also is available on my website, as is my book, Connection to the Cosmos, and the accompanying Oracle deck. So check those out. And for all of my products and services, you can find those at mysticmanta.com or at drlisajthompson.com. And if you're coming to Hawaii, to the Big Island, come on one of the Big Island UFO tours. I kid you not, we see stuff every single time, and you will learn so much about this. So for more information on that, check out bigislandUFOtours.com. And without further ado, I'm going to bring on Brandi Khan. Hi, Brandi.
Hi, Lisa.
Okay, well, let me tell everyone all about you because I cannot wait to get into our conversation.
Awesome.
Okay. Brandi Khan is a certified counseling astrologer, intuitive medium, and Arcturian healer. Brandi has been a featured guest on Hay House Radio with one of her mentors, James von Prague. She is also a contributing author of the books When Angels Speak and The Last Breath. She is a level 10 practitioner in the healing modality known as Arcturian healing. Can't wait to hear all about that. She is a full-time homeschooling mother to her 4 children. I do not envy you. And she lives in Lake Jackson, Texas with her husband, children, and 2 dogs. So thank you so much for being here, Brandi.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Yes. Well, we're going to get to the Arcturian stuff a little bit later, but the very first question that I ask all my guests, because again, I always want to know this, is what kind of spiritual or religious or other kind of household did you grow up in so that we can see this transition into your spiritual business?
Yeah, so I grew up in Mississippi, and it was in a very religious household. We were Jehovah's Witnesses. So,
Okay.
from 3rd grade on, there were no holidays. It was very, very structured. There was time spent going door to door. And one of the things that I was taught as a young girl is, all this stuff about energy and intuition or whatever, it's not really of God. It could even, it was even labeled as demonic. So I was very, very aware of that. And there was an experience that I had when I was 16 years old where me and my mom and my aunt, we were sitting down watching TV on a Saturday night, and we were watching this show called Showtime at the Apollo. It came on in the 80s and 90s. Okay. And we were watching the amateur night segment, and this was a brand new episode. So the first contestant comes on stage, and before anybody can say anything, I said, "Oh my gosh, that guy's going to sing, and he's going to sing Ribbon in the Sky by Stevie Wonder." And, Steve Harvey was the host, and he asked the guy, "What are you going to do tonight?" And the guy was like, "Oh, I'm going to sing Ribbon in the Sky." And I was like, "What?" My mom and my aunt didn't say anything. Second contestant comes out, and I'm like, "Oh, she's a dancer. I bet she's going to dance." Steve Harvey asked the contestant, "What are you going to do?" And she said, "I'm going to dance." And I was like, "Whoa, I'm really doing this." Third contestant comes out, and I'm like, "Hey, he's a comedian. He's going to tell jokes." And fair enough, he was a comedian. So at that point, my mom was like, "Stop. And I was like, "What? I haven't seen this. I'm not playing." And she said, "No, stop. You had to have seen this. Just stop it." And I remember getting up from the couch and I was confused and upset. And I made the decision right then and there, hey, I'm never going to do what I just did. I'm never going to do it again. And I completely shut down my intuition and those senses, those faculties. And I did not open them back up until my 20s. And a lot of it had to do with everything associated with using that around my religious beliefs growing up.
Okay. Wow, that's um so how did you finally break free of that religious dogma then?
That was really, really, that was hard. That was
Mhm.
hard because it had been inculcated into me, for
Yeah.
so long, and we were, so deeply into it. So, um, it was a few lonely years, like of feeling a lot of self doubt, feeling like God hated me because I just was not fitting into the group. I wasn't fitting into, things that they were telling us wasn't making sense. And I was breaking away slowly but surely. But at the same time, I was like, Is something wrong with me? What's wrong with me?" So, in my 20s, I went through years of confusion and trying to figure everything out. But, finally, after reading other information of people who had been in and had left,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, this is not just me, and, and,
Mhm.
and it's okay for me to be me.
Okay. Well, and so how did your family feel about that? Like, are they still practicing Jehovah's
No,
Witness?
no. Um, Everybody's kind of gone their own ways. I think everybody is kind of seen that, maybe what was taught or what we were practicing is really probably not the best fit if we want to live like our authentic lives and make decisions for ourselves. So,
Yeah. Well, so, you have to be pretty brave to do that as like going against, your family and whatever you grew up
yeah.
in. And what finally, like, how did you find that intuition again, that ability? Like, what prompted you to be like, no, this is me, this is who I am?
Yeah, that had to have been when I was going through the dark night of my soul. That was in my early to mid 20s, where I
Okay.
was feeling like really ousted from the group. I was feeling a sense of not belonging, and I was searching, searching, searching. And I read so much by Deepak Chopra and Wayne Dyer. That was the beginning of my search. There, like in my mid 20s, and then in my late 20s, and early 30s, that's when I came to Reiki.
Okay.
And Reiki was the turning point for me. That was the true turning point of where everything else came in after Reiki.
Okay, that's so interesting because I've had other guests on where Reiki was their entry point into
Yes.
this energetic spiritual world.
Right.
So,
Yes, it was definitely that way for me. It's called the gateway drug because so many people come in through Reiki and then you end up going into other things because it opens you up, it opens your awareness, and all of a sudden there's room to grow in other areas.
okay, so you're doing the Reiki, and were you just doing that for yourself, or did you actually practice it on other people?
I practiced it on other people as well as doing it on myself. I made sure that my three oldest children all took Reiki 1 and my husband as well. Like I was really, really serious about it. And I even went so far as becoming a Reiki master. So I had clients and it was through Reiki then that other things started to shift, other things started to happen.
Okay, well, lead us through that then. Tell us what the
Yeah.
next step was.
So the next thing that happened was so I'm really into Reiki and spirituality, and I learned transcendental meditation, and I'm meditating every day. And then all of a sudden, I loved Amazon. Like I'd get like books all the time. So on the recommended list on my Amazon, these books started to show up about Pleiadians, and I'm like, huh, don't know what those are, who they are, but I know I'm supposed to have that book. I know I'm supposed to have it. So I ordered a book on the Pleiadians and was absolutely blown away. I'd never heard anything about, these beings before. And in the book, there were exercises like, using the Pleiadian sleep chamber, different healing chambers, that type of thing. And I started using, the exercises and I could actually feel the energy of the Pleiadians. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. So, from Reiki, then I get into like working with the Pleiadians, and then the Arcturians come about a little bit later.
Okay, well, so and when you we're working with the mediumship again, where does that fit into the galactic energy that you?
So, okay, let's see, mediumship. So I'm working with the Pleiadians for a few years, and that's Reiki. And then around 2016, early 2016, was all of a sudden I got a reading from a wonderful medium, wonderful psychic medium. And she told me, she said, your guides say that you're a medium. And if you ever wanted to be a medium, you could do it. And I laughed at her. And I said, no, you're wrong. You're talking about the wrong person. I'm not a medium. I don't have that within me. And she said, no, they're saying that you have it. So from there, I go to Google and I'm like, okay, mediumship classes. I want to learn. I want to see if this is really true. And of course, James Van Prague, he pops up and I sign up for his class in 2016, early 2016. So most of that year was all about, am I really a medium? And learning in that way. And then in August of 2016, there was an exercise that James wanted us to do. So up until this point, I'd only been reading pictures like of people who were in spirit, right?
Okay.
So now he's like, no more tools, no pictures. I want you to connect. I want you to go into meditation, and I want you to connect with someone, and then write about it. So Sunday afternoon, I go in my bedroom. I'm alone and I'm in my chair and I close my eyes and I go into my power and I move my mind to the spirit world and I ask for a communicator.
Mm-hmm.
And it was pretty, I was very surprised because there was a gentleman that actually showed up. And I could see in my mind's eye that he was African American. And he told me that his name was Earl. And I did not know him. I expected like a grandparent to come through. So I'm like, okay, so how do I know you? Or what's our connection here? And he said, no, I know your father.
Mm.
And I'm like, okay. So how do you know my father? And he gave me more evidence. So, and then I was surprised when he told me, hey, your father's not doing too well. And I'm like, wait, what? He said, your father, he's not doing too well. And at this point, I'm like, okay, so this just got really weird.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go ahead and close down. I'm not sure what's going on here. I'm not sure who this guy is. And I'm going to just say thank you. Okay. So I said, thank you so much. Thanks for coming to share your energy with me. Thank you. And I closed myself down. I moved my awareness away from the spirit world. And then I sat there with a dilemma. Do I call my dad? Do I tell him about this? He's going to think I'm crazy. Now, I must tell you, my father was the only one that I had talked to about my journey into mediumship for 2016, during that year of 2016, because
Okay.
he was really, really open. And my dad was really, really sensitive, but he didn't talk about it. So he told me, if you ever want to talk about this stuff, you talk about it with me. Other people may judge you, but you can talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I sat there and I'm like, okay, I know that he's open, but this is just weird. But I picked up the phone and I said, hey, Daddy, this is going to sound weird, but I was just doing a meditation and this man came in. Do you know somebody named Earl? And he said, yeah, I know two Earls. One's alive, but one he already died. I said, okay, the one who died, how did you know him? What's your relationship like? And my father confirmed everything that Earl had already told me about how they knew each other and their connection.
Okay. Yeah.
Earl was a fellow musician. So my father played with BB King. He toured with BB King. He was his alto sax player, and Earl was the one who came and took his place in the band when he was ready to leave. So Earl was an alto sax player like my dad. So this was the Earl in spirit. And so I said, okay, Daddy, you don't have to share anything with me that you don't want to share.
Mm-hmm.
But I need to tell you, he mentioned that you are not well. And then
Mm-hmm.
there was just this thick silence. And he said, yeah, I understand. And I said, okay, as long as you understand, I just wanted you to know that's what he said. And he
Mm-hmm.
said, okay, I get it. And that was actually the last time I talked to my dad because he passed 3 weeks later.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
So Earl came through in a way. I think it was to prepare me, but Earl gave me one of the greatest gifts because every medium, we go through these days like where we have our doubts. Am I really a medium? Is
Yeah.
am I really a medium, or am I just imagining this? And whenever those moments of doubt come in, I remember Earl, and I
Mm.
remember his message, and I remember how my dad validated it. And I remember how, Earl was trying to give me a heads up of something that was coming. So, and that just really gives me the conviction and the belief, that I am a medium. So,
Yeah, that is beautiful. And I know that I've had a lot of guests that are mediums on, and even some people watching and listening that are mediums. And I do know all of them. And me,
yeah,
my gifts, we do sometimes question, like, okay, is that really real or not? And so
right,
to have
right.
some kind of validation that we can always reflect on, like, okay, no, that's real. It is.
Yeah, exactly. And my mediumship actually became stronger after my dad passed. It was almost as if like he was there helping me from the spirit world. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, I have heard that even. I was taking a psychic intuition class 4 years ago, and the first night of class, we were um, taken on a journey to meet a spirit guide that would help us get extra information. And so I could see your dad being that kind of helper for you as
Right.
well, right?
Right. Right.
So then let's stick with the mediumship for just a little bit longer. So then what has that allowed you to do? 6 years now you've been practicing this.
Right, right. Yeah, so for 6 years, I've really, really been developing, and I've been so incredibly blessed, and I'm thankful. Like, I feel like I've had the best teachers, the best mediumship teachers, like from James Von Prague to, Mavis Patilla just passed away, and Anthony Maraca and Andy Bing. Like, I've had like the top teachers that have really, really helped me to find my power like as a medium, and to develop, and then to share messages with other people. There have been really low moments with it, though. Like when you're developing, it's tough, to learn how to use your power, to learn if you're making it all up or if your head and your thoughts are coming in. But it's been wonderful for me. And I think the best thing really about mediumship, though, is I was able to study trance mediumship. I began 2 years ago, and I'm still developing as a trance medium with Tony Sockwell and Michael Mayo. And they were my trance teachers, and trance actually made the mental mediumship a lot stronger. And trance also helped me in a way with the Arcturian healing as well.
Can you explain the difference between trans mediumship and then just, I guess, yeah,
Mental mediumship. So, mental mediumship, like you see a medium who's giving a reading, that's usually mental mediumship. It's a very active process, like you're actively engaging and speaking, and blending with the spirit communicator there with you. But with
okay.
trance, no, it's very passive. You got to get out of the way. The goal is to sit and become quiet, and to allow your guides, teachers, and helpers to come in and blend with you in such a way where there's very little of you and there's a lot of them. And many trance mediums, once they're really in that state and they've blended, they will begin to speak, but it's not them that's speaking. It's their guides, their teachers speaking through them. So whereas mental mediumship is very active, trance is passive. And trance is, it's difficult because you've got to learn how to get out of the way. And
Hmm.
learning how to get out of the way in trance helped me with the healing as well. Because, with Arcturian healing, you've got to get out of the way as well.
Okay. So it sounds like trans mediumship is very similar to channeling, right?
Yeah, I would say it's a deeper state. They say that, yeah, channeling is maybe up here, and then trance is a little bit deeper. Yeah.
Okay. Well, and
Yeah.
I know there are different levels of
Yeah.
channeling as well.
Right. Right. Yeah. Right.
People are, yeah, are still more present, and then other people are like they're completely gone, and they are just,
Right. Yeah.
yeah, for
Yeah.
that. Okay. Okay. So, um, what I guess in the mediumship aspect, then, what has been maybe the most profound thing that you have experienced or that you've helped people with having this gift and sharing it?
Hmm. It's it it's so amazing because So many times I think like we underestimate ourselves, and we think, well, everybody, is able to do that. And coming to the realization that, like maybe what I do, maybe the time that I've put in to develop, it allows me to connect with a loved one in spirit for someone who may not, um, have the same knowledge of how to do it. Everybody has the ability to some extent,
Right.
but um, the look on people's faces, when they're touched by something that comes through in a reading, it's incredibly satisfying to know that in some way, like I am of service not only to those in this world, but in service to those in spirit as well.
Mhm.
And it's a responsibility that I do not take lightly. And so just knowing that I've helped people, seeing their reactions has been like incredibly gratifying.
Okay, that's beautiful. Well, and I know different mediums have different abilities in terms of some actually see the person like
Right,
they're next to them, some
right.
just hear the information, some it just the thoughts pop in. So for you, how does that come?
I'm very, very clear sentient, and I've always been that way throughout life. Didn't know what it was called, um, but I get strong, strong feelings or impressions. So, like, let's just say on a psychic level, if I'm around someone who maybe doesn't have good intentions for me, I'll
Yeah,
feel it in my gut. I feel it in my gut, right?
yeah.
So then, like when I'm in the state of where I'm blending with the spirit world and my mind is moved there, I feel the spirit communicator there with me. I feel what they're trying to impress upon me. So mine is really from a sense of feeling.
Okay, beautiful. Well, and I mean, the cards never lie. So today's oracle card that I pulled from my connection to the cosmos, that
Uh-huh.
got posted on Facebook, was clairsentience.
Oh, wow. There are no coincidences.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, we do have one question from Thomas who's asking, does your automatic writing come through in trans mediumship? So, like, I know for me, when I do automatic writing, I feel like I'm more channeling that.
Mm.
But again, it's probably blurry lines as to what might be mediumship versus channeling.
Right. And I'm just speaking from experience. I don't know, maybe there is a medium that can. Oh, yeah, there are some. I have heard of some that do writing, automatic write, like while they're in a state of trance, but they are not aware of what's going on.
Yeah.
I have seen like other very accomplished mediums who've been sitting as trance mediums like for years speak, and it's amazing. It's
Mm.
amazing, the way that they're able to get out of the way. And this teacher comes through, and sometimes there's a change in the facial features. There may be a change in the voice. I just think it's an amazing process.
Okay. Um, so my next question still on, and then we're gonna switch gears just because I always get so curious about mediumship because I feel like I definitely I'm intuitive, I have psychic
Hmm.
powers, but I haven't developed that mediumship, and it hasn't been something that I have like actively sought out to do
Right.
yet. That doesn't mean I won't, and I do believe, like you said, everyone has that ability. But I know a lot of mediums, it's really just like past loved ones or dead people, like
Hmm.
human people that have passed
Hmm.
over to the spirit realm that are
Right.
coming through. But some people, through their mediumship, can experience angels or
Hmm.
galactic beings or,
Hmm.
things like that. And so, do you experience that as well in your mediumship?
I've only experienced that in the trance state. So, for example, like moving my mind to spirit, I've never really had like a star being or galactic being come through that way for me personally. That may work like for somebody else, but in trance, usually the feedback that I get from the mediums that I sit with in trance is there's an incredible amount of healing energy that comes through. And
Hmm.
I've always felt like at different points in my trance development over the last 2 years, and like I sit up to once or twice a week with groups, it feels sometimes as if there's angelic energy that's coming in, and
Hmm.
others in the group can feel it. And I've been aware sometimes like if it feels like Arcturian energy coming in, and going to the group like as healing energy. So in those ways, I have experienced that, but only through like trance.
Okay. Okay. Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, so now let's transition to, okay, so you're doing Reiki, and through that, now the Pleiadians are coming through,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then you somehow had this bridge to the Arcturians. So I'd love to know like all of that.
Yeah. So, okay. So my dad passes at the end of 2016. And my mediumship just really comes in end of 2016 and 2017. And in 2017, there was a lady out of nowhere that just messaged me and said, "Hey, check out this guy. Like, he's teaching this class. You may find it interesting." And I have no reason why she messaged me, but it was Gene Ang, and he's the one that developed the Arcturian healing method. And I was drawn to begin studying with him. Now, what's so weird is the same lady also said, "Hey, there's this guy in New Zealand and he does these galactic natal charts. Send him your information and then he can tell you if you've got lineage, like if you're a star seed, and where your lineage is from." And I'm like, okay. So I tried it out.
Mhm.
And I sent him my information, and this guy knew nothing about me, right? All the way in New Zealand. And I was so surprised when I got my chart back, where he looked at my chart and he said, "You've had incarnations both in the Pleiades and Arcturus, but most of your time was spent as an Arcturian." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh." I mean, like the Pleiadians came first and then Arcturians later. And then it's verified for me in a galactic natal chart reading that there's a connection that's there, maybe a past incarnation. So,
Right. Okay. Well, real quick question about the galactic natal chart, because I've heard of people doing that. I haven't ever had one done myself.
hmm
Super
hmm
curious. One of the things that I saw recently about that is that it maybe can only pull in information about maybe your most recent incarnation. So I'm curious if you can speak to that. Like, as an astrologer in natal charts, like how can they pull more quantum level information into that chart?
Yeah, like even now as an astrologer, I look at what he sent me and I don't understand it. Like the way that he went about reading a galactic natal chart was very different than how I read a natal chart through Western astrology. If you understand what I'm saying, like it's completely different. The signs and symbols that he saw on his, I don't really see on mine. So I'm not sure of which system he used, but I just know it's very in depth. But there is one thing that I can say, even though I don't completely understand, the specifics of the galactic natal chart. I was just reading about how you can look at an astrological natal chart, and a lot of times there's flags there. So, for example, one thing that you can look for in your natal chart. Um, are there repeating numbers or patterns with numbers? So, for example, in my natal chart, my Western natal chart,
Yeah.
there's patterns. I was born at 111, 111.
Okay.
The sun was at 11 degrees.
Mm,
So there's a pattern there of the ones. And then my life path number in numerology is
yeah.
one. So there's a
Okay.
lot of one, 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 one,
Yeah.
another thing that you can look at in the natal chart to see if maybe there may have been like a past incarnation, like, was a star person. Look at the South Node. Look at the sign of the South Node. They say usually for Cancer, Scorpio, or Pisces, there will have been a past life. And my South Node's in Pisces. So I was like, oh, okay, wow, this is interesting, because a lot of the criteria they were giving actually line up with my natal chart. So,
Okay. Okay. Interesting. And again, we'll talk about the astrology in a moment. 'Cause
yeah.
my mother was an astrologer in my
No way. Oh, awesome.
half of my young life. Yeah. Up until I was about age 13.
Oh, wonderful.
And okay. And again, not that, the galactic natal chart isn't accurate. I'm just curious,
Oh,
like,
yeah. Yeah.
like information.
I'm curious too, because I look at it and I'm like, how did he do this? Like,
Mhm.
where did this come from? But what I know is like that what he told me like completely resonated like with my life experiences and with what I feel
Yeah.
inside.
Okay. So then with the Pleiadians, and then how, I guess, when you're working with the Pleiadians, the energy of that, how did that compare to working with the
Mm.
Arcturians?
It's very, very different. They've got a completely different energetic signature. Yeah, I
Mhm.
know that like the Arcturians are about love, but the Pleiadians, like the feeling that I got, it was so much about love, 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 connection, peace, harmony. That was the feeling, right? And I'm not saying the Arcturians are not like that, but with the Arcturians, it was a heavier, denser energy that was a little bit more focused on, I feel, healing,
Hmm.
or soul evolution, soul growth, helping in that way. So they feel completely different to me.
Okay, very
Yeah.
interesting. Okay, so let's talk about then Jean Ong's method of Arcturian healing and
Yeah.
what all that incorporates, and what does it mean to be a level 10 practitioner? Because that
Yeah.
sounds like really high, but I don't know how many levels there are.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Okay.
Gene is absolutely like brilliant. He got his PhD from Yale and he's a neurobiologist. And somehow he went off from that, hardcore science into more healing, the healing arts. And he studied quite a bit with a lot of like high level people. And then the Arcturian healing method came to him or he developed it in some way. So like with each level, there's a certain, like there's all these frequencies. Like let's just say like per level there's about 10 frequencies, I would say 10 to 12 like that he'll teach. And so each level you build upon the next, and so I've gone all the way to level 10. So there's quite a few frequencies that I can work with. What does that mean? Well, like there's some Arcturian frequencies that are really focused on the physical body. So we've got the neural net frequency, which is about, working with the nervous system, the brain balancing frequency. We've even got one for the endocrine system. We've got one to boost immunity. But at the same point, there's also frequencies for raising your vibration, frequencies for clearing your aura, clearing the energetic field around you, frequencies for helping you to align with your higher self and your life path. So it's very like multidimensional in that way. Like it targets not only the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual body. I mean, like there's different frequencies that can do different things.
Okay. And when you're talking frequencies, how are you accessing those frequencies? Is it through sound or color or?
No, actually, so like what you do, he taught a system where the frequencies are you there's a chakra up here, up above the head, which he refers to as the Arcturian diamond, and it's through that diamond that you access the frequencies. Now, what I love about his method is in Reiki, I was taught that I was like a channel, a vessel,
Mhm.
and like the energy kind of comes down through me, and then through the palms, to the person that I'm working on. With Arcturian healing method, it's almost like the practitioner. You just open the door and you let the Arcturians go in and do the rest. You understand? Like, so it's not like I'm having the energy's having to come through me to get to you. It's just like, let's open the door, bam, they're there, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
And so how long did that training take?
Oh, so I started in 2017. So what, for the past 5, 6 years, I've been working hard at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I get what kinds of healings have your clients had and what has it done for you as well?
Um, I'll speak about me first.
Mhm.
I've noticed that when I'm running the frequencies on myself in a very consistent way, life has this magical quality. I just cannot explain it. It's like things just flow, things flow. I'm much more connected to my higher self when I've been running the frequencies consistently for myself. But, like 4 kids and all that, a lot of times I get too busy. So, but I love the way life feels when I'm in the energy, when I'm running the energy consistently. Now, for other people, I've had clients from India and China, throughout Europe, Germany, um, that come and book these sessions and absolutely love them. I even had this one guy from Australia, and I think that he's probably been my favorite client because I guess he was really into like all of the galactic healing, and he had done a lot of it, so he was very sensitive to energy.
Okay.
So when I ran his session, because you can do these remotely, we don't have to be,
Okay.
like face to face. I remember when I ran his session, and then he contacted me afterwards, and he's like, "Whoa, what was that? wow. And I'm like, yeah, it's nice, isn't it? And I love the fact that he was able like to feel it so strongly. We're continents apart, but he was able to feel the energy. I loved it.
Okay. Well, and that I'm glad that you mentioned that because that was going to be a question of like, do you have to have your people in person, or is it like other energetic healing where?
It can be, yeah, distance. Actually, most of my clients are distance healing, and what I'll usually do, we'll meet on Zoom. It depends on what you want. Okay, so
Mhm.
like for example, the guy in Australia, the man that I was working with, we did not do Zoom. He was just happy to agree upon a time. I made sure that he was ready, and then I started sending. Right, that worked for him. Other people feel better if we are on Zoom. They're while they're lying down on camera, and I'm sitting here running the frequencies. So it just depends upon what the client wants.
Okay. So, what kinds of ailments or issues would people have that come to you?
For example, a lot of a lot of clients that I've had lately, it's been a lot of, I think, uh, mental worrying, like anxiety, that
Mm.
type of thing, or just feeling really confused, feeling like they need clarity about, what's going on with their life, or feeling they need help, making a decision. I've seen more of that recently, more so than I've got a physical ache or physical pain that I want addressed in a session.
Okay. Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, I curiosity question: have you ever actually had any direct experience with UFOs or ETs? Like, have you seen them? Have you had those interactions, like face to face?
The and the thing about it is Gene does talk about how the Arcturians are like an angelic, an angelic group, angelic frequency, and I've heard people say that sometimes Arcturians can appear as angels.
Hmm.
So there was one time, I was teaching classes in Houston at Body, Mind, and Soul, and I was teaching classes on angels. And there was just, so much about angels going on around me. And this particular night, my husband was on call at the hospital, so I was alone in bed. And, early in the morning, I woke up because there was a bright light. And I was trying to figure out what was going on. And I look over at the wall, and there's this huge, like glowing figure of an angel like on the wall. And I remember looking and I'm like, oh my gosh, those are such big wings, right? And then I remember going back to sleep. Um,
Yeah.
I know I wasn't dreaming. I know that that was what I saw. And a lot of times I feel like that the way the Arcturians work with me and come to me because I do so much with angels, a lot of times it is as an angel or angelics.
Okay. Well, and that's
Yeah.
interesting because that's something that I've had other people kind of describe to me as well that are mediums
Yeah.
and just I haven't ever really been an angel person. I've tried. I have a lot
Yeah.
of friends that are angel people, like
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
experts on the angels,
Yeah.
and I love that. And so I've learned some from them,
Yeah.
but I haven't ever, again, like, oh, I love angels. I love Archangel Michael and my blue bubble. I've learned to embrace that.
Yeah.
What I have understood is that you're right about the Arcturians. That and my feeling, again, not knowing exactly how the angels feel, so I can't compare directly, but
Right.
this feeling of like super high conscious,
Yeah. Yeah.
right, Buddha consciousness, and that they will appear to people depending on how they grew up or what kind of mindset.
Right.
Like, so they can appear as angels,
Right.
and then they can appear as galactic beings to those like me who grew up in like ETs are real and
Right. Right. Yeah.
ships and stuff.
Right.
So I'm with that, it's a curiosity question and not necessarily that you're going to be able to answer like definitively, but just putting it out there for all the angel people, like, are angels and Arcturians the same thing?
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
don't.
and that's I wonder that. And I never thought that. I never thought that they were the same until Jean said, well, that's one of the ways that they've shown up to people. That's one of the ways that they can show up. I'm like, oh my gosh, that makes sense then, like for me, because so much of my life has been all about angels. And I know that I have this Arcturian connection as well. So I guess time will tell for me. Like I'd really love to know more about that.
Okay.
or experience more about that, like in my life at some
Yeah.
point.
So, knowing that you have this lineage from the Pleiades and from Arcturus, have you ever done any deep dive work into understanding what your lives were like in those realms at all?
No, I have not. I have not. That is one thing that I want to do. I do know, though, because I do quite a bit of meditating, that I did have a significant incarnation at some point in ancient Egypt. There's such a connection for me there, and it comes to me like all of the time in my meditation. So I'm not sure if there was a connection between. I know people have said, well, it was the ETs that helped build the pyramids. I'm not sure what the connection would be between me and Egypt and, like, let's say Arcturus, but I just know that it's there. I know that it's there.
Okay. Well, I would love to share you my experience of that because I
Sure, yeah.
have the connection. Well, so first of all, I the work that I do, the regression work. So I'm able to help people get into like, okay, what is that life specifically, right? And so, like for me, my Arcturian life, the one that influences this Lisa Earth human life the most is I am a healer. I'm an Arcturian healer, but
Wow.
they, of course, are at such a high vibration, they don't need healing themselves. But what I realized was myself, the Arcturian, sends healing energy down through this Lisa
Oh,
that then
wow.
helps to heal this body, but also then helps to send the energy out to
Oh,
heal.
wonderful. That's beautiful.
And so, yeah, so that whole Arcturian healing thing, I mean, it's a real thing. So I'm
Yes.
on
Yeah.
board with you and Jean and anyone else who does that kind of like
Yeah.
connection. Now, I recently, it was this year that I discovered my connection with ancient Egypt because I've always been drawn to Egypt too. And I'm like, okay, and I hadn't really done like regression work to figure out what it was going on. But one of my guests, Tracy Mahan, I did a session with her and we got into what is this connection with ancient Egypt.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't Egyptian. I was actually Syrian from Sirius.
Oh,
And
wow.
and so then just a couple months ago, I had a regression session, someone regressed me, and I got to experience that whole life of that connection of what we were doing here on Earth with
Wow.
the Egyptians and seeing the pyramids being built.
Wow.
But my role was actually as a genetic engineer to help upgrade the human body to hold more energy. So
Wow. Wonderful.
anyway, so there are different ET groups that were definitely part of that Egyptian realm. So Syrians were just one of the groups. But
Hmm.
anyway, I wanted to share that. Just
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. That's so interesting.
have you open the door to more
Yeah.
exploration
Yeah.
on that. I love it. So, okay, so now you also are an astrologer and
Hmm.
you're getting your master's in psychology right now, as we talked
Yeah.
before we got on. And so I would love to know if you want to share with people like how you're going to use psychology with the spiritual work that you do, or what
Yeah.
plan for that.
Yeah, even coming to astrology, like if I were to, I remember my Reiki master, the lady who taught me like 12 years ago, I remember her asking me about astrology if I was interested in it. And I'm like, no. Like I really, I did not believe in astrology. I kind of thought it was hogwash. At one point in my life, I didn't think that there was any truth or validity to it. And so what happened was, so my dad, he passed in 2016, and John Edward, the psychic medium, he
Yeah.
came to Houston in 2017 and did a show. And so it's like 1,000 people in the audience. And before he began giving readings, he mentioned something. He said, people always ask me, which psychic do I go to? Who do I go to get my readings? And he said, I don't go to a psychic. The only person that I go to for readings is an astrologer. She's located in Australia, and her name is Maggie Kerr. I took out my pen and paper and I wrote down Maggie Kerr. Didn't know why, but I knew, okay, I've got to contact her. Don't know why.
Yeah.
So I booked a natal chart reading with her 3 months later and was completely blown away. That was a turning point in my life. She basically told me the story of my life from looking at my natal chart. And everything that she was telling me about me, how my mind works, I'm like, where have you been all my life? I wish I had had this knowledge, when my late teens, early 20s, mid 20s, when I was struggling to
Mhm.
find out who I was and why I'm the way I am and all of this type of stuff. That would have been so helpful. So I was blown away. And she told me at the end of the session, she said, you have it in you to actually understand astrology really well and work with it. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She said, look, right here, this and this, you can work as an astrologer. I'm like, wow, okay. So then I mentored with her. She was my mentor for 2 years. I did her certification program, and that was how I came to love astrology and giving natal chart readings for people. Now, the thing about the natal chart, it's the blueprint of the soul, and you can see so much about the psychology of a person from the natal chart, right?
Mhm.
And what I'd love to do, eventually, I would love to, give sessions to people where I'm incorporating knowledge of psychology with the knowledge of astrology, like, together, bringing them together, because I think they actually complement each other very well.
Okay. So I guess how is a natal chart different than a regular astrology chart reading that someone might get?
So it's the same thing. So like let's just say you go to an astrologer and you're like, I want my chart read. Okay, that's going to be your natal chart, right? So like when you were born, the minute that you were born, the sun was in a particular place, the moon, all the planets, right? That's your signature right there. That's your birth chart. Now, so an astrologer can go through that with you and kind of tell you, well, so these were the aspects. These are things that maybe were born with, personality characteristics, difficulties, challenges that you may face in life, that type of thing. But like also what an astrologer is able to do is to read transits. So
Mhm.
they can take your natal chart and look at how the planets never stopped moving when you were born, right? So
Right.
they continue to move. And depending upon where they're stationed now, you could be going through a difficult transit, like a transit where you're feeling really isolated, or a transit like where everything is working for you with your business and it's your time to shine, right? So, so an astrologer can help you not only understand your natal chart, what you were born with, but also the phases or the seasons within your life or what you're being invited to do. And there's so much power in knowing if you're going through a difficult transit, like if I'm going through a hard time, I'd love for somebody to tell me, you know what, this is temporary. It's okay. You're going through a really tough Saturn transit. You may feel isolated. You may feel restricted. And it's okay. It's not going to last forever. But this is what you're being invited to do. This is what the universe is asking for you to develop this particular quality. So don't worry. It's not going to last forever. It's hard right now, but there's the light at the end of the tunnel.
Okay. So what can you share with us about your natal chart? Like what's besides that you were meant to be an astrologer? One you mentioned, and you had another reading where you were meant to be a medium. And so
Yeah, yeah.
so you keep getting this information and you're like, yes, yes, I'm doing that. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So is that just part of who you were born to be, is to be this
I
like,
f Yeah, I definitely feel so. So yeah, like in my chart, you see working as an astrologer. You also see I have the aspects of and this is very true with my experience, going through life and feeling like I never fit in,
mm,
going through life and feeling like, "Oh, gosh, I'm like such a weirdo. I feel different and I'm going to try to fit in, but no matter how hard I tried to fit in, I just couldn't do it. And that's my biggest life lesson, is learning how to be the individual that I am,
mhm,
and learning how to march to the beat of my own drum. And actually, one thing about that aspect, anybody that's got like sun square Uranus or moon square Uranus, the reason why we feel so isolated, like when we're children or when we're young and teenagers, is because we're going to end up doing something down the road that's we may have to stand on our own. We may not have everybody's approval. We may not have everybody's validation. So we've got to learn. We learn those qualities when we're younger, with that placement. And one other thing I'll share with you that I want to tell all women this. In my natal chart, a lot of my planets are concentrated down, around the fourth and fifth houses. Like, so home, family, children.
Mm,
That's like the focus in my chart, home, family, children, right?
okay.
And I remember, like at one point, mid 20s, comparing myself to other people that I'd been in college with. And like, how come I didn't have, the career? Why didn't I want to go for the career? Why did I feel compelled to stay at home? Why did I want to stay at home and raise my kids? And you look at my natal chart and you see, well, it's kind of what you signed up for, right?
Yeah.
On the flip side, I had a woman who came to me, and a lot of her planets were around career. It wasn't home and family for her and kids. It was career, working, that public reputation.
Yeah.
That was what she agreed to. That was the blueprint of her soul. So
Hmm.
like, as women, we really have to make sure we don't judge each other, like the working moms versus the stay-at-home moms. We're each called to do something different. You look at that chart, and there's a reason for what you're doing, and you can't judge another person based on their choices because she's probably living according to her chart.
Yeah.
So that's something I love to share.
No, I love that. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for that because, and again, my mom was an astrologer and I've had readings done throughout my life, but I don't remember a lot of it. I know I'm a Sagittarius and I'm a Gemini moon and Gemini ascendant. So,
Oh, I'm a Gemini ascendant. Okay.
so that's what I remember about myself, but I
Yeah.
have my natal chart done by a friend
Yeah.
soon, but I love that because I highly doubt I have a lot of those planets in that home and family kind of.
Yeah.
I think I'm more of the career kind of gal
Yeah.
and
And
always
that's
been.
perfectly fine for you. That's probably what your soul
Yeah,
agreed to before you came in, and that's what you're doing. And I'll also add, there are some women, I just saw one on Facebook, that get a lot of flack because they don't want children. They don't want to have children, right? And then people make them feel badly about it. So if you look in my house of children, I've got 4 planets and I've got 4 children. Okay. So,
uh-huh,
it's kind of meant to be that way for me.
yeah,
And I remember one time doing a reading for a lady, and I was preparing her chart, and I was so worried about what I was going to tell her the next day because it didn't look like there was going to be any children. There was something, I can't remember exactly what was in her fifth house, but I'm like, oh my gosh, I wonder if she wants children because this is looking like no children, possibly.
yeah,
So the next day during the reading, I'm like, very timid. I'm like, so tell me, do you want children? And she's like, oh, absolutely not. I don't want kids at all. And I'm like, oh, that's so interesting because, this particular placement kind of signals that. So that's when it clicked for me. Whether or not a woman has children, that's her choice a lot of times too.
yeah,
She's following her own particular path,
yeah,
and we have to respect that.
yes, yes, for sure.
Yeah.
And I have my best friend and I, we both have children, but we joke all the time that if we should reincarnate as Earth human in our next life,
Uh-huh.
we're creating a contract now. We are not going to have children and we're likely going to be either gay or lesbians.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I
Yeah.
know. And I have a couple other friends that are on that same, like, yep, it's been a hard path with these kids
Yeah.
around. But anyway, and I love that you love being a mom and you love homeschooling your kids. And I just,
Yeah, but it's not for everyone, and I respect that.
yeah, I love it. So I'm curious, just because you've delved into all these different topics, have you ever looked into your human design? Because that's also a blueprint of who you were born to be. And it often validates, corroborates what astrology does because it does have Western astrology as part of it. However, it gives some additional information. So I'm just super curious
No,
what.
I never have, and someone else has mentioned that to me, so that's my sign. I'm gonna, like, try to get that
Okay.
done. I'd love to know about that.
Yeah, that's something that I do. And for those of listening until December 12th, I have a special.
Oh,
um,
awesome. Okay.
yes, but um, and yeah, not that you need to sign up with me, but you can.
Oh,
But
I'd love to.
um, it's just so fascinating because we really are like all of these different modalities really do give us information about ourselves. And
Right. Yeah, they
we are
do.
here, I mean, at least I know I'm here to get to know myself at the deepest level possible. And
Yeah.
in fact, even my family name, so Thompson is my mother's maiden name, and I just happened to marry a man with the last name of Thompson.
Oh, wow.
Actually, a Scottish name. My aunt went to Scotland with my cousins several years back, and the McThompsons, the actual meaning of it is to know thyself. Of our
Oh, wow.
and
Amazing.
yeah, so my mother, my aunt, and I, for sure, we've all been on this deep dive journey through our adult lives. Anyway, me through my childhood because of my mom and my aunt, but
Right.
it's just so interesting.
Yeah, it is.
So when you do charts for your kids and your husband, and you're looking at how they operate, does it help you
Oh
be
my gosh.
because like
Yes.
knowing about my kids helps me be a better
Oh
parent.
my gosh. Yeah. I've got four, and at one point before astrology, I thought that, okay, you can use the same approach with all four. They all value different things. They all tick in different ways. They're wired in different ways.
Yeah.
So, like, for example, my oldest son, and I didn't know this at the time when he was little, but it explains it. Um, he was 2 years old. And we were potty training, and we couldn't get him to go number two in the potty. It was always in his diaper. So I took out my husband's internal medicine book, and I opened it up to the pictures of like skin diseases. This is so bad. And I'm like, look, this is what could happen if we don't stay clean back here. That kid never had a dirty diaper again. Like that worked for him, right?
Okay.
And I tried that with the other three, and it didn't work. And then when I came to astrology, I understood why. His moon is in Virgo.
No, I was going to say,
Virgo,
no,
yeah,
right?
yeah, moon. Like, so that feeling of safety, connection. I like to feel clean. Cleanliness matters to me. So that's why it worked for him. He was wired differently than it did for the other three.
Okay. Yeah, my son is Virgo sun.
Yeah.
And then my daughter, she's a Leo. But she's a
Me
baby.
too.
Are you? She's a
Yeah.
baby Leo. Like she's a 0 degree or one
Oh,
degree.
really? Oh.
Yes. So,
I'm a double Leo. My sun and moon are both in Leo.
okay.
Yeah.
How did. That's
Yeah.
all I say. Powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing about Leo, a lot of times, like Leo comes across super confident, and we don't need, we act like a lot of times like we have all the answers, but many times Leo needs the validation from other people. Leo feels really insecure sometimes, and we try to cover it. So, like growing up as Leo wasn't always easy because there were all these self doubts,
Okay.
that I had to work through.
Yeah. So, and just from your experience, so, sometimes or I've heard anyway that, okay, your sun sign is who, the primary of who you're kind of showing up, but the rising, the ascendant is more of how people see you as.
Hmm.
Is
Yeah,
that true? And like, can
yeah.
you explain that?
Sure. So, like, if someone doesn't know a lot about astrology, like most people think, okay, I am my sun sign. I am my sun sign. That's all there is to me. And that's a fallacy. That's a misconception. The rising, the sun, and the moon, all three are equally important. I call them the Holy Trinity. They work together. So, how does that work? Okay. So, I'm meeting Lisa for the first time, right? The part of Lisa that I'm going to see for the first time right upon meeting her is that Gemini rising, right? You probably will be very talkative, very friendly, um, love, to have a conversation with me. That's the Lisa that I'm going to get, right? Is the rising sign. That's that first part of your personality that's doing the meet and greet. Now, after we talk for about 10 to 15 minutes, then I'll probably get a glimpse or a feeling of that sun sign peeking through, right?
Okay.
And then we talk about 20-25 minutes, and you're feeling really safe and you allow yourself to be vulnerable. That's where the moon sign becomes apparent. So that's how the three of them work together. And your sun sign is all about, it's the heroic essence of who you are. It's who you are here to be more of. It's who you're trying to be, the qualities that you are trying to really bring to fruition.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
So, and did I come across that way as that Gemini?
Gemini, yes, yeah. But I mean, like, To me, I was able to see it easily because I'm also Gemini rising. So there were certain things about you. I'm like, okay, that's a lot like me. I feel the Gemini there, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, and I know Gemini sometimes gets a lot of flack of like,
Yeah. Yeah. Of being like, the dual persona.
yeah,
But, one thing that Maggie shared with me, and I tell everybody, is there is no good and bad with astrology. There's functional and there's dysfunctional. Now,
okay.
a
Same human design. There's no
yes.
bad. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So like a functional Gemini is going to go out and operate in the world differently than a dysfunctional one would, like so functional, somebody that's friendly, witty, curious, inquisitive, loves to talk, loves to communicate, right?
Yeah.
But dysfunctional Gemini could be somebody, that's playing both sides or not being true, not being authentic, so you just have to make sure that you stay on the functional side. That's the way I think of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
Well, Brandi, I would love, because we're running out of time now, but I would love for you to share how people can work with you. What kind of clients, do you
Mhm.
want? What are you looking for?
Well, anyone. I'd love to work with anyone. If you want to know more about yourself as a person and want more self understanding about what makes you tick, I'd say schedule a natal chart session. Okay. But if you're wanting to hear from a loved one in spirit, I'd love to help out with a mediumship session. And also, as well, I'm looking for volunteers. I sit with a group of ladies. We meet every Friday morning. We're a group of like 5 to 6 mediums, and we've been meeting for the last 6 years. And we take volunteers of people who want to come in and just have a free mediumship reading, and we do that as a part of our development. So I'm always looking for people. If anybody wants to volunteer
Wow.
to come and sit for our circle, you can do that. Or if you feel like you want to connect more like with your higher self through the Arcturian frequencies, experiencing those, please feel free to sign up on my website for that. And I will mention to everybody, I forgot to mention it earlier, before we began this interview, I did open up an Arcturian healing vortex. So anybody watching live and anybody watching the recording, the energy is here. I don't know if you've been aware of it, Lisa. I've felt it the whole time.
They're always here.
Yeah, yeah. So I open up a vortex so that the energy's been running during the show.
Awesome. Well, I mean, so generous. Thank you for that. But also, like, for those really that, yeah, that volunteer opportunities. So
Yes.
how would they sign up for that? How can they reach
They
you?
would, yeah,
Please, it's me.
yeah, yeah. They would need to just message me. We're always looking for sitters. Message me and I'll tell them, okay, we're booked out for a couple months because we've had, volunteers, but then I can put them down and they can visit our circle. We're a group of mediums. We've been working together for years, and people love to come in and have readings done.
And is it on Zoom where they
It's
don't
on Zoom. Uh-huh. Because I think like four of the ladies are in Canada, one is in Louisiana, two of us are in Texas, one is in Colorado. So
have?
we're spread out.
Okay. Well, and your website is www.brandikhan.com. And I'm going to spell that out for those of you who are listening instead of seeing her name on the screen here. It's BrandikKhan. Okay. Brandikhan.com. Well, thank you so much for being here. And I just can't wait to see what else is going to unfold for you. And I love the work that you're doing out in the world. So, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I had such a good time with you. Thank you.
You're welcome. And for those listening and watching, thank you. And I'll see you next time. Aloha.